Welcome. Thank you so much for joining together in practice. It's so great to be able to gather and practice together. As you all know, and I'll dive in a little bit more, but our topic today is about extension. And from a somatic point of view, what is extension? And both extending towards something, but also extension is receiving. So we'll be working with both of those today. Let's do this first. Let's just do some basic opening practices. Those of you who've done any of our work know that we start our days this way, and then of course encourage all of us to start our days this way anyway. So I'm going to start with some centering and rowing in gratitude. If you'd like to actually stand, feel free to stand. If it's more comfortable in your body this morning to sit, feel free to do that as well. I'm going to go ahead and stand. All right. So just getting ourselves present, open, and connected inside of every practice. There's a principle that we're practicing embodying. And what we mean by that is it's a new practice or a way of being or a way to take action, that the more we practice it, the more of an option it becomes or a choice it becomes, especially when we're under pressure. When we're under pressure or we're triggered or we're living in the, I don't know, let's say the chaotic times that we are, often we get thrown into our oldest habits. And those habits don't leave us necessarily with a lot of options to respond. We rest or we kind of revert back to reaction. So practicing helps build our choices. Yeah. So centering. We center to get present, open, and connected, and then on purpose. So go ahead and sitting or standing, just let your attention move from thinking into feeling. That means just let your attention come into sensation. You might notice some sensations in your face and your head. You might just gently start letting your breath drop down your spine and start to notice the sensations in your chest and your back. Just softening your eyes, your gaze, softening your breath, letting yourself notice what's happening in your belly or your hips right now. And then let your attention continue to drop down. You can notice what's happening in your legs, your lower body. If your feet are on the floor, just notice the quality of contact with the ground. Bringing ourselves into sensing, right? There's a whole intelligence that happens inside of sensing and inside of emotions or feeling. And we're trying to just bring all of our wisdom, right, to our lives, all of our wisdom to being here. So let's then bring our attention down the center, just a couple inches below the belly button, if it helps to put your hand where you can. But drop your attention lower in the body, drop your focus and even bring yourself. Right, this dropped open attention. And then from center, we're going to center in 4 directions. So the first is length, settling into our lower bodies, and again, feel this rather than imagine it. Settling down, kind of making friends with gravity, while we simultaneously lengthen up. Just making a little bit more space through the back or through your chest or your neck. So settling and lengthening, centering in length. Inside of that, we're also practicing centering in dignity. It's that inherent dignity of all life, including you. Centering and balancing in length, just feeling that. Then from all that length, let's go ahead and widen out. Cross your ribs, cross your hips. You're going to stretch your arms out and just feel, right, the aliveness in your hands and that lift. Taking a big breath into lift. Then relaxing your arms down, but staying wide. All the way across, lift across your feet, across your hips. Balancing left to right in lift. And here we're also centering in really the relational space, letting ourselves out, letting others in, centering in interdependence. Right, those moments we recognize or realize interdependence is it can be such profound moments. Yeah. So interdependence with being present there this moment. So we're centered in length, centered in width, centered from to back in depth, and let your attention just drop down into your internal space. Maybe you can feel your heart beating, your breath moving. You can feel down into your muscles or even your skeleton. You're coming into that deep internal space. And then from there, expand into your back body. You might feel the space behind you, or your clothes on your back body. Just let yourself get present to what's at our backs, right? Ancestors. 3 billion years of evolutionary wisdom. Like that long tail of history and life experience. Just let yourself get present to that, connected to that. And then from your back into your internal space, all the way to your front body. Maybe you can notice kind of your breastbone, your sternum. Or again, your clothes on your belly or your knees. Facing into the front, connected to what's behind, in and with ourselves, and then facing forward. Now facing into the future, our intentions. Maybe playing around extension toward what we care about. And also facing into what is and what's unknown. We feel all of that, right? So we're not just thinking, we're these live, dynamic, changing human beings. Feel your whole self up. And then balancing the length and depth. And then the last thing we always focus on is if you have a declaration, go ahead and speak your declaration to yourself or your vision for the future. Or just center on who and what matters to you. What's important to you, what's calling for you. Centering in that, speaking that to yourself. And then let what matters to you really inform your entire nervous system. Almost like what matters to you can also shape you and inform and support your changes.
Staci, could you speak up a bit? We have some folks in chat who can't hear you.
Absolutely, sorry about that. Happy to extend more. I think my volume's all the way up. So centering in length, width, depth, and centering on who and what matters to us, and letting that also really imbue our whole nervous system. What we're really practicing is that we can keep deciding from that place, acting from that place. So we keep lining ourselves up, right, with our vision and our values, bringing our actions in alignment with them. All right, now we're going to take this into some change and some movement. Go ahead and place your right foot in front. And if you're seated, you can do the same thing, just slide your right foot forward. And we're going to go ahead and move our center forward, putting weight into the front foot and then back. If you're seated, just slightly lean forward and lean back. Then we're going to take imaginary oars from center, pull them back to center. All right, forward and back, just go at a pace that works for you. Centering still, practicing length, width, and depth, practicing moving from the center of care. Relaxing your shoulders and letting yourself breathe. In a moment, I'm going to say change, and that'll mean bringing your back leg forward with your hands and your front leg back. And change. Back leg comes forward, front leg back. Inside of that, we're just going to start adding some more complexity, right? How can we practice staying centered in change? And change. Just continuing to breathe as we row. And change. And change every time. Centering the change. Relaxing in the change. Staying connected to what we care about in the change. Good, and hold. Now just take a moment and feel yourself again. Your breath might be a little faster, your heartbeat. Let all that aliveness or quickening be there, and then just let yourself center amidst that. So you don't have to tap it down or contain it or get rid of it. Just make space for it. More space in your length, more space in your width, more space in your depth, and centering even with that increased aliveness. All right, then let's take all that energy that we got to generate together and just really open our palms, like our energy could come from center all the way through our hands, and extend gratefulness down to the earth. And feel free, since we're on mute, to go ahead and name something you're grateful to the earth for today. Here, I'm in Oakland on a lonely land, and it's raining, and we need the rain. I'm grateful for the rain and the wet earth and all the grasses that grow so quickly, even when you think there's just no grass left. So whatever it is for you, extend your gratitude to the earth. Then let's also take that up to the atmosphere, the ever-expanding universe, the stars, and just send thankfulness, whatever you want to send thankfulness to. Right, letting our aliveness move toward and give gratitude to this bigger aliveness. And then let's take our extension out into width and give gratitude to people. And you can name specific people in your life, or your community, or your neighborhood. Just who do you want to send thankfulness to today? Good, and then lastly, just a heart in your center, a hand on your center, a hand on your heart. And this is a practice of giving and receiving, extending gratitude to yourself, and then also opening yourself to receive. And appreciation, thankfulness. Sometimes it's difficult, right, to be thankful for something in ourselves, but find something in particular. Maybe it's your perseverance, or your love, or your flexibility, or your steadfastness, right? Whatever it is, just extend gratitude to something particular in yourself. Giving and receiving. Feeling, sensing. All right, excellent. For those of us standing, let's sit back down. And then, as you all know, the last thing we do inside of our kind of opening practices are to just drop your mood in the chat. So how's your mood in practicing today? Just go ahead and drop it in. Happy, sad. I always appreciate the complexity of our moods. Excellent. Thank you for all of that. Rebellious, grateful. Awesome. All right. Great. I was like looking at all of you. Give me a minute to change my view here. There we go. All right. So we're gonna dive into and talk about extension today. And there's a little phrase, actually, before I learned somatics, another teacher of mine, one of the principles he taught was that energy flows where attention goes, which is a nice little rhyme, but energy flows where attention goes. And in many ways, as we start to explore extension, it's really this question of where are we putting our attention? Where are we putting our focus? Where are we putting our energy? Where are we putting our actions, right? That's where we're looking at with extending. Toward what are we extending, okay? And somatically, extending is both a practice of giving out, extending our attention and energy out. And it's also receptive, right? It's a practice of receiving. So I'm going to kind of just break these apart today so that we can practice both, because they tend to take a bit different shape in us. And some of us are a lot better at extending and sometimes overextending. And then some of us, although it seems like not very many of us, are better at receiving. If you're better at receiving, congratulations. Most of us have to relearn that. Yeah. So we're going to play with both extending and receiving. So the practice of extension, sorry, we just sat down. I'm going to stand up and show you. If you'd like to stand up again, feel free, or you can also just do it from your seat. But the practice of extending is from center, like we just did. I'm going to turn to the side a little bit. We put one foot in front of the other, bring our arms up and let aliveness, I kind of imagine if my arms were hoses, can bring energy from center and extend, open those palms and extend toward what we care about. Yeah, it's relaxed shoulders, it's relaxed down in the center, and then extending. So just in your own space, seated or standing, see what it's like to let yourself extend, keeping your back, but extending, let's say, 6 feet out. Maybe there's even something in your space you want to extend toward. Maybe it's a plant or a kid or a partner, but extending your attention in this relaxed, centered way out toward something. It's like we're letting our life touch life, or our life extend towards something that matters to us. Yeah? And just as contrast, again, seated or standing, let's try this. Let's all try on overextending. So that means we get thrown off center and we're overextending. Usually it brings a lot of tension into the shoulders and neck. We're overextending. Yeah, and just feel that shape inside of you. It might be familiar to many of us, but overextending. Feel the quality of that shape in you, and also go, God, how long can I sustain this? Yeah, feel that. And then let's let that go. And then let's feel also underextending. So that's like, I'm here, but I'm actually pulling myself back. I'm like, yeah, that's important to me, or I want that, but what's more important is tucking myself in, or pulling myself back, or in some ways needing to protect or hide myself. So feel what that feels like in you when you're pulling your energy more back in. And just notice, is that familiar for you as a little bit more of a default? Good, and let's let that go again. And then one more time, just take your moment to center and switch legs if you want. And really we're practicing, we can feel our lower bodies. The energy that we're extending can even be connected into the earth and ground. We're centered, we're in our backs. And from that balanced place, we're purposely focusing our attention, our actions, our energy toward what matters to us. Toward what matters to us. Relax shoulders, deep breath. Relax down into center and extending. Just feel again for yourself, does this feel sustainable? Like something you could do over time. Then gently go ahead, let your arms down, but continue to extend your attention. So you're still centered, you can still feel your back, you still have a base, and you can extend, maybe this time it feels like you're extending from your gaze or from your heart or from your center. But continue to extend your attention toward, right, someone, something, some place that's important to you. All right, just getting a feel for that. Let's sit back down. I think we're going to get up and down a lot today. So let me just, I kind of want to get the shape into us. Like, well, what are we doing inside of extending? Does anyone have any comments or questions? You can throw them in the chat, or you can also use that raise hand function. It's under reactions at the bottom of your screen, and raise your hand. Do you have any questions thus far about extension? Awesome. We don't have to have questions. Mostly just want you to feel it and find that state inside of you. All right, let me ask you this. How are the feet positioned? Are we to switch feet? Oh, good. Here come the questions. That's great. I notice that being centered feels like leaning back because I'm so used to overextending. Yes, exactly. Exactly. I think many of us, for a lot of reasons, from family to schooling to social and cultural norms, get really trained to overextend, kind of leave ourselves to pop out towards something else. Yeah. One of the most important things when we're extending is you can relax into your back, find your hips underneath you, and from that place of balance, then we can extend, right? With the arms is just how we practice to get the shape into ourselves. But it doesn't inherently need your arms. With the feet, it doesn't matter which foot is in front, just in your practice, keep switching which foot's in front. We all have our habits, right? We're bilateral, our brains are bilateral, arms, feet, just keep switching so that we keep practicing different pathways in our nervous system. Yeah. And I also appreciate, Cameron, what you said about you notice your CT while over and under extending. Exactly. Most of us have a conditioned tendency or a habitual way of being around extending. Yeah. All right, I want to ask you to, for a moment, answer these questions, and you can jot them down or you can just think them. But let me ask you this. Who is someone in your life that you would like to extend toward? Sometimes we can be around the people that we spend time with and the people that we love, and we actually don't extend toward them, especially a centered extension. Yeah, so you can write it down or put it in chat. Just who's a particular person in your life that you want to extend toward. All right, second question is, who's someone in your community? And I love how specific people are being. And your community could be your neighborhood, could be your practice community, it could be an identity community, but who's a person in your community that you'd like to extend toward? And then the third of 4 is what's a community that is not one of your communities? What's a community that's different, right? That you don't spend a lot of time in, that you'd like to extend toward. Yeah. So what's a different community that you like to extend attention, care, right? That you'd like to extend toward. And then lastly, what is a place? Right, a place. Could be a river, could be a mountain, could be a forest, could be a country. What's a place that you'd like to extend toward? Care, attention, your energy. All right. So in a moment, we're going to extend again. This time I'm going to stay seated, but you can stand if you want. And just look at your list. Someone in your life, someone in your community, a different community, a community you don't spend time with, or a place. And just decide which one of those do I want to practice with this morning. Yeah, which one seems like a good place to practice? And what we're going to practice is we're going to practice overextending and feel the quality of that relationship. We're going to practice underextending or holding back and feel the quality of that relationship. And then we're going to do centered extension and feel what's possible inside of that relationship. Okay? All right, good. So decide which one you want to do. And I'm going to back it up a little bit so you can see a little bit more of me. But again, feel free to sit or stand yourself. I'm sitting a bit on the edge of my chair. Take a minute and just sense and feel yourself, right? So much information comes through sensing and feeling. And whichever one you chose, just bring them to mind and heart. And we're going to start with overextending toward them. All right, so we're going to overextend, overreach, even if we're doing that with like care. I really, really, really want to care for you, whatever it is. Overextend and feel how that is in your body. Right? Overextending. Notice what happens in your body, and then take a moment and notice what does that bring into the quality of relationship, that overextending. Just feeling that, imagining that person, community, or place. What does that bring into the quality of the relationship? Good, and let's let that go. Wow, that's kind of stressful. Okay, now let's take a moment and like hold back or underextend. So that same person, community, or place. And this time we're just pulling back. It's like we mean to put our love there, we mean to put our attention there, we mean to, but we're just in more of a conditioned tendency of I'm pulling back, or I'm going to hold myself back. And I'm going to not really bring my center or my heart there. Feel that shape inside of you. And then notice what that does in the quality of the relationship. How does that shape the relationship? What happens when you're under extending? Feel how you do that. And then let's let that go. Good, and again, sitting or standing, let's just center ourselves again. Really relax, let your shoulders relax, let your jaws go. Drop your attention down your spine into center. Maybe you need to relax your glutes or your feet. Drop all the way down to your belly, that belly center. And then from center, just lengthen. Center and length. Lower body, upper body, settling and lengthening. Centering in dignity. And center and width. Right? Find your own center line and also widen out. Right? How are we staying connected to ourselves and others at the same time in width? In center and depth, especially find your back. Back body, all that history, connected to our own depth and internal space, and also being able to face forward. And then center on what matters to you, your values, qualities. Then from this space, really practicing length, width, and depth. Again, from center, go ahead and extend. Let that aliveness come through your extension while you stay in your own center. You feel your own back. We practice breath. Good, extend and just feel that shape in you. I'm with me and I'm extending toward another, a community, a place. Continuing to breathe and recenter. And then just feel what's possible in that relationship from centered extension. Just keep recentering and extending toward that person, that community, that place. Good, another couple of breaths, centered extension. Notice the quality of the relationship. And then let's let that go. Feeling yourself again, just checking that you didn't go into over or under extension. Good, and coming back. All right, what did you notice? What happened in you and what became possible in the relationship? And if you're open to chatting, just use that raise hand function and raise your hand, or you can also drop it in the chat. I love that, a beautiful parking garage. I've never had those two things combined before. That's good. Openness to uncertainty, exactly, beautiful. Widened, respecting the other, beautiful, thank you. Okay, good. And Connie, thank you for raising your hand. So Lunas, can you help take Connie off of mute?
Great.
Hi, Connie.
Hi,
Yeah.
Staci. So great to see you.
Yeah, you too. What'd you notice?
So in that centered position, what I feel, it's kind of the ego moves away and there's a lot of love, but also that spaciousness of the unknown, you know, that I'm not kind of putting my wants over how I want to help, but it's more of the quality of fine-tuned listening. So this came. But my question, Staci, is for me that I felt, okay, now I have to pull back again. You know, this is how much I can right now hold this space and be in this fine-tuned, like that attunement. and I was wondering, oh, is this okay? Like, because you were still extending, and I thought I have to pull back. And that is something I'm playing with. Of should that not be like, if I would really do it, then there is never-ending energy, because it's this giving and receiving. I would be in the loop. So why is it that I felt, okay, is this still like kind of where my conditioned tendency, oh, this is as much as I can tolerate right now? Like, I would appreciate you reflecting back on this.
Let me ask you a question first. I really appreciate your description, right? That you could be present, you could be curious to what is, rather than projecting, right? What either you needed to happen or how you wanted them to be, or even how you wanted a positive interaction to go. So that feels like a really good marker for you are present, centered, and extending. It doesn't mean that gives us an answer. More, it gives us curiosity and presence to what's there and what's changing, right? So just let me ask you this question. When you felt like, okay, it's the right time for you to regather yourself, or for you to pull back in, what was it that impulse was trying to take care of?
That's a great question. It felt like an integration. It felt like, oh, there's so much coming in as information, and I cannot hold both right now. Like what's happening inside my soma and that community that I was extending out to. And so I need to come back and just like digest a little bit of what was revealed in this.
Yeah. So that's fair, huh? You know, that piece about we open and we close. Like that's what our hearts do, right? Or we make contact and we separate. Like that is a very natural, organic rhythm of all life, including us humans. So first thing I want to say is, don't make yourself wrong for that. Right? That's a natural impulse of life, and attending to our needs and being self-responsive lets us also show up again. Right? Lets us show up again. And then another thought and idea, and this is kind of like the advanced extension practice, is that we're practicing extending right out this way. And that energy that comes into us, we can also just let flow through us. There's a way also we can kind of open the bottom of our feet, and we can be extending down to the ground, just like the ground is extending up to us. So there is a way to sustain longer extension by letting that energy, instead of pooling in us, letting it flow through us. So there's an extension and there's an ongoing ground, and we become a bit more of a river than a lake. Great. So that could be something you could play with.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, that shows up in different areas where I've like, oh, you need to let go too. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Great to see you, Connie. And then Kristen, thanks for raising your hand.
I am trying to, am I unmuted now? Okay.
You're unmuted.
Thank you. I was aware of how each gesture just triggered an automatic emotional response. It was sort of the overextension immediately kind of put me in the position of being a vulnerable child reaching, and the emotion sort of that followed was the fear, which would make me rescind. So there was this, I was just aware of this child experience coming up in the overextension, and then an inauthentic expression when I would retreat. So it was sort of behind the center was a sort of inauthentic experience, and the overextension just felt needy and sort of desperate and fear. Like it was, I just noticed immediately an emotional experience in relation to the gestures.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Isn't it amazing how much memory lives in our muscles? Mhm. Yeah, we're practicing extension today, and a different practice we might try on is literally that practice of reaching, right? This practice of this reaching, which all of us at a certain developmental stage, we spend a lot of time doing that. Or any of you who've raised kids, like this of like pick me up, right? Or reaching toward is a very, very deep gesture in our collective psychobiologies. And what I find beautiful about what you're noticing is you're like, oh, that historical gesture has maybe wants some tending in you,
Mhm. Mhm.
or was unmet in the way that you and really all of us need it met.
Mhm.
So something I love about somatic practice is history will just rush to the foreground as well, and especially history that wants some tending.
Mhm.
What do you think about that?
Well, what's interesting is what followed the child was an awareness of myself as an adult pursuing and being in the world very much on the aggressive side. Like physically, I'm a pusher. I get things done. My energy is very outward. And there's a lot of anxiety around that. And just this awareness of the vulnerability underneath it helps to sort of contextualize where that angst is sort of coming out of, this kind of unmet something needing to be seen, needing to be, but then having that come out. So it's sort of this weird experience of myself as young, as self as adult, and how the gestures were related and kind of built on and sort of came out of something. So I find that's super helpful, very enlightening actually today, because I was committed to that this morning, was this sort of what is this about? And it was sort of interesting that it's been seen here. So thank you for that.
That's awesome. You're really welcome. You're welcome. I love how adaptive we are. And I know we suffer with our adaptations, but it's like, I also have a very deep overreach for the same reason. There were, younger yearnings that didn't get met. And that overreaching, I mean, I think many of us who, whatever, it gets called attachment in some worlds, but like when belonging, a centered belonging wasn't available, our worlds weren't responsive to us in that need for contact, we create adaptations. Some of us create the adaptations of like, I'm going to withdraw, I don't care, whatever, right? Some of us create that adaptation, or isolation, which is an extreme adaptation. And then some of us are like, we're not going to head into the world in overreach. But they're both trying to take care of that same really very honorable need for contact and interdependence and belonging. And for any of us, I mean, it's interesting. I didn't really expect this to come up today, but I really appreciate, Kristen, how honest you're being here. Is extension can also be a place where just go, there's healing here for me to attend to. Let me just have it be a healing practice for a while. That I center, that I extend, that I open myself, and I open myself inside that extension, and then I let the history and the emotions connected to that not being met be tended to and washed through. Yeah. And I think my guess is the cost of overreaching and overextending, right? Yeah. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's expensive. Definitely. I just am amazed. I mean, I consider myself a pretty embodied person in general, as a dancer, meditator, all of that. And I'm just shocked at how quickly in just this exercise, things were put together in a way that were so revealing and so simple, just so simple. Like I'm kind of blown away with how simple the knowing was, and how the receiving, I guess it's receiving in another perspective, the receiving of what is going on here, being open to that. yeah, that's feeling something.
Could be a cool practice to play around with, huh?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate it. I want to do just one more briefly, and then I do want us to practice more specifically on the receiving part. And Adaril, is that how you say your name? How do you say your name? So Lunas, can you help us here?
Okay, there we go. Daryl.
Daryl.
Yes. Thank you for recognizing my raised hand. And just in going through those extension exercises, I did feel some difference. The reaching was vulnerable. The pulling back was also vulnerable and very uncomfortable. And I wonder, we did this exercise from a place of intention, who we want to like send this energy to, what have you. But is there a way to see how we're naturally calibrated generally for, is it a overextension, underextension, or a centered extension? And is there a way to, almost like a pendulum, to keep it calibrated in a way that somatically we're extending from a central location versus an overextended location?
Yeah. Did you notice for you that kind of is overextension more your default, or underextension, or a little combo of both? Like, what did you notice is maybe more of a habit for you? So Lunas, can you help us with volume again? With
Thank you. It seems that the overextension was more comfortable than the underextension, but there was a true sense of comfortability at the center. There was an illusion of comfortability with the overextension, but I was clear that it was an illusion.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. It's like habit has, I always think of it as a false safety. Like our habit has the impulse of taking care of safety or belonging or dignity, but it ends up being a false safety because of how it limits our actual choices and our ability to actually be present. So I appreciate how you're saying it's what felt really true was a centered extension. So really, and you know this already, but the way to keep calibrating is first have a deep somatic awareness with yourself. When you're in conversations or on Zooms or out doing whatever you do in the world, that you just notice, can I feel my back? Can I feel down into my center? If I could have centered extension right now, how would I be doing it? That you just bring a steady ongoing, I mean, whatever, 5 times a day is enough, but attention to look, how am I located, right, in my soma? And then can I feel my back while I'm extending forward, either through my gaze or my heart or my belly? And it's that repetition, it's just the repetition that has that become where we can calibrate to quicker and quicker. I particularly find it, I was just visiting my nibblings, my nephews in LA, and they're like 13 and 14 and they're changing so fast. It's like hormone land with them. And I've known them since they were born. And I'm like, how do I be with them now, with who they are now? And I found myself overreaching. I found myself giving too much space because they had changed so much. I needed to adjust. And it was a great place of practice to just go, let me be in me and open and be with them, right, as that base practice. But I noticed I was getting thrown off because of all the change. Yeah. How does that resonate for you about ongoing attention and practice?
It totally resonates to do it when just inhabit the check-ins versus doing it when you're in the emotion, you're driven by the emotion or the experience, right? Or catching yourself in the middle of it, but just kind of checking in from a higher conscience, not from a lower conscience, if you will. And you
Not
said
like
Yes. You said safety, belonging, and what was the third thing?
Dignity.
Dignity. Thank you.
Dignity. Yeah, for sure. We kind of in somatics, we really hold those as core inherent needs that many of our adaptations or our habits or conditioned tendencies are built out of, you know, trying to adjust to get safety, belonging, and dignity for ourselves and the people that we identify with. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for coming live here. Yeah. All right, friends, I want to do a little bit of extending and receiving. Thank you for everyone else who raised your hand. I'm sorry we didn't have time. So for a moment, just bring your hands up and put your hands in receptive mode. That means things can flow into them rather than things are flowing out of them. So I'm trying to give other cues to how to feel that. Yeah, so imagine that presence or energy or nourishment is flowing into your hands. One thing that might help is that you open up the pores of your skin just a little bit more to receive. Okay, good. Let your hands down. Now we're going to try that with our chest, which can be a little harder. So just go ahead and feel your chest from the inside out. If you want to touch your chest, it's fine. And see if you can just maybe 3% or 5% let your chest become more receptive. That life or sunshine or wind, like something you find pleasurable, that you're just a little bit more receptive, love. And again, I love this word permeable. Let your tissues become a little bit more permeable. Let your muscles soften just a little bit. And what's amazing, even our bones can be more permeable. Just see if you can get a little bit more into reception. Relax your jaws, relax your eyes. And just notice you also have a back, right? So you can be a little bit more receptive. Okay, and then just pick one other place on your body. Maybe it's your belly, maybe it's your feet, right? Just one other place to practice. So you might feel that place. I'm just going to use my center. Can you feel my center? I'm really used to my center feeling kind of like a big sphere, but that it's contained. It has a boundary to it. But wherever you pick on your body, just get present there first. Feel the quality, the shape of it. And then again, just let it be 3 or 5 or 7% more receptive. Like land that can really just take in water. Or a leaf that can just take in sunshine. Just noticing what you feel. If your body's like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, it's fine. Okay, it's fine. If you can feel it, just notice like, wow, how do I just let myself be a bit more receptive? Good, letting in rather than just extending out, right? We let in. Okay. Now I want to invite you to pick another thing on your list. It's different this time. A person, a community. It's probably one of the top 2 because those are more specific. But in a moment, I want to have us practice extending again, but this time we're going to extend toward that person, and then we're going to get receptive and receive their extension toward us. If no one on your list makes sense, you could do this with the stars. You could also do it with the earth, right? Like we can extend toward the earth, but the earth is also, right, extending toward us. Okay, so sitting or standing. I'm going to sit again. Let's take a moment. We're just going to do the centered version. Take a moment, just again, drop your attention in and let yourself recenter length, right, and dignity, width, and interdependence, depth. Really find and feel your seat, your center, your back. And then from center, go ahead and extend. Right, I'm going to practice with my nephews, extending from center. And then let your extension become receptive. Let your hands become more receptive. Let your chest and your heart become more receptive. Let your belly become more receptive. And receive from a centered place, receive their extension toward you. And just as much as you can, 2%, 8%, whatever works, let in their extension toward you. Feel how you can stay centered, receptive, while you're still in the shape of extending, right? Extending and being receptive. Good, and let that go. And I know we're coming on time, but just go ahead and a couple people drop in the chat the same shape of extension, but we're practicing being receptive, more permeable. What did you notice? How was that for you?
Also, Staci, could you relate this to how this shows up in our coursework? I put into the chat a few of our courses that are coming up. One with Discovering the Wisdom of the Body with Richard tomorrow. Our next Embodied Transformation course in March. And then, of course, continuing this conversation on the Soma platform.
Thanks, Alunas. And that link is in the chat for everyone. Awesome. I'm going to say a couple comments. Those of you who have to go at the hour, thank you so much for being here together. Those of you who can stay 2 more minutes, feel free to stay. So I'm seeing a lot in the chat about receiving. If you in some ways take any practice away from this, it's that last practice I would invite you to take, because so many of us are not very good at the letting it in. And often, like many of you have said, it's more vulnerable. Sometimes tears can come. Sometimes it's like, wow, I yearn for that quality of connection and I don't know how to let it in. I don't know how to be both extending and receptive. So that receptivity, I'm extending, I'm with myself, I'm centered, but I'm also going to open myself to receive. It's a good practice. So if it serves you, please take that one on, practice freely. And just want to thank you all. Thanks for being together today. Thanks for practicing together. It's a delight for me too. All right, see you again. Thank you.